Fellowship Farm. Book 2, Flea, Flex and Fizz. Leezah, Skye-Maree and Olingah Fitzgerald of Fellowship Farm love puppies. They do school projects on puppies, they draw them, they dream about them, and they beg their parents to let them have a puppy of their own. But Mummy and Daddy say it's not the right time. Then one day, coming home from school, they find something unusual by the side of the road that might just turn out to be the answer to their prayers. Chapter 1, A Mysterious Moving Sack. It was the end of the school day. Most of the children lived in the township, so they walked home or rode their bikes or got picked up. But Leezah and some of the other children at Kellyton Primary lived on farms some distance from the school. They went home each day on the school bus driven by Miss Rowbottom. So Leezah and the other children in grade 5 said goodbye to their teacher, Mr. Dunlop, collected their bags from the coat room and went to wait for the bus. When Leezah arrived at the big oak tree, her little sister and brother were already there, waiting for the bus doors to open. "Hi, Skye! Hi, Ollie!" Leezah greeted them. "Hi, Leezah!" they both said together, turning to face their sister and grinning. Skye's yellow school skivvy was covered with bloodstains. "What's that?" asked Leezah, pointing to the stains. "I got a bleeding nose," said Skye. "I was just about to kick a goal, and then Joanna came charging at me and ended up falling on top of me, and we clunked heads." "Oh, Skye," said Leezah, giving her a hug. Skye-Maree was 8 and in grade 3. She was very tall for her age and very strong. She loved sport, especially football. And so she often came home bandaged or bloodstained. "Look what I made," said Olingah proudly, holding out a juice bottle that had been turned into a bright green pig. Olingah was 6 and was just finishing his first year of school. He was so happy to be going to school with his older sisters at last. "Good job, Ollie," said Leezah, admiring the bright green pig. It was 3:15 p.m, so Miss Rowbottom opened the doors of the red school bus to let the children on. While they waited in line to get on, some of the children wrote their names in the dust covering the old bus. "Hey, I just remembered you said yesterday you weren't going to catch the bus anymore, Ollie, because the big kids teased you." "Never mind about the teasing," said Ollie, trying to be brave as he stepped up into the bus. "Abdul-Baha had worse teasing and he didn't run away." But as it turned out, Ollie didn't need to be brave that day. As Skye stepped into the bus after Olingah, an orange ute pulled into the school grounds and honked. It was Dr. Fitzgerald, Leezah, Skye and Olingah's mum. Olingah had caught sight of his mum from inside the bus. "Hey, that's my mum! Mummy!" he called excitedly, clambering out of the bus. Mocking voices followed him, calling, "Mummy! Mummy!" Olingah didn't even notice. He jumped off the last step and ran to the car. He scrambled in. Leezah and Skye-Maree went to their mum's window. "Hi, Mum," they said. "Are you going home early today?" Dr. Fitzgerald usually worked each afternoon as the town vet and got home after the children at 5 o'clock. "Yes, no sick animals this afternoon, so I can give you all a ride home," she smiled. The girls threw their bags into the back of the ute and climbed in behind Dr. Fitzgerald. Dr. Fitzgerald drove out of the schoolyard and through the town. When she reached the dirt road that led to the farms, she turned right. The children chatted with their mother about their day at school, and Ollie showed his mum the bright green pig he had made. Soon the Fitzgerald family farm could be seen off in the distance. Fellowship Farm. Suddenly, Skye, who was in the back seat with Leezah, cried out, "Oh, look, a wombat!" "Where?" asked Ollie, straining against his seatbelt to see out the window. "On the side of the road." Dr. Fitzgerald slowed the car to a stop. They clambered out of the car and walked slowly back along the road to where Skye had seen the wombat. When they got close, they realized that Skye hadn't seen a wombat at all. It was a brown Hessian sack, and something inside was moving. Chapter 2: Inside the Sack. As soon as Dr. Fitzgerald saw the bag, she knew what it was. It was tied tightly shut with strong string. None of them had their pocket knives with them. "Get back into the car, please," she said to Leezah, Skye and Olingah. Dr. Fitzgerald picked up the bag and, as she did, whatever was inside started thrashing back and forth and yelping. She carried the bag into the back of the ute and started the car. "What is it, Mummy? What's in the bag? Is it a monster?" asked Olingah. "No, honey, it's not a monster," said his mum. As they drove the rest of the way home, Dr. Fitzgerald explained what was in the bag. She told them that some people let their pets have babies, but then the people don't know what to do with the babies. They might try and find homes for them, but if no one wants the puppies or kittens, sometimes the owners just get rid of them. Dr. Fitzgerald explained that inside the bag were abandoned puppies. Nobody wanted to take care of the puppies, so the owners just left them in a bag to die. Leezah's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't think of anything more cruel. Leezah loved animals, especially puppies, and it made her very, very sad to think of them being hurt. When they got home, Skye ran into the kitchen to get scissors to cut through the yarn that held the bag shut. Usually when they got home, their daddy was there to meet them from the bus. But Dr. Fitzgerald had called him to let him know he could stay out on the farm and keep working. She was bringing the children home and would get their afternoon snack today. Skye ran back with the scissors. Dr. Fitzgerald lowered the sack to the ground and carefully cut it open. Inside the sack were 4 little puppies. They were all coloured white and brown and black. They were dusty and weak and scared. Leezah ran back out of the house, up the stairs and into the kitchen. She grabbed the milk from the fridge and a dish from the cupboard. She raced back to the front of the house. 3 of the puppies were timidly exploring the nearby grass and plants. But one little puppy just lay on its side, panting. Dr. Fitzgerald saw Leezah bringing the dish and milk. "Good girl, darling," she said. "That was helpful and considerate." Leezah poured the milk into the dish and the children gently nudged the puppies toward it. The puppies had not really learnt how to drink from a dish, but they were so thirsty that they did their best to slurp up the milk. Leezah dipped her finger into the milk and dropped some of the drops of it into the sick puppy's mouth. Its eyes were closed and it was breathing very quickly. "Let's take them all around the back," suggested Dr. Fitzgerald. Each of the children took a puppy and Dr. Fitzgerald gently carried the sick one and the milk dish. The children helped their mother make a little bed for the sick puppy. They used an old woolen jumper that didn't fit Olingah anymore. They made the bed on the veranda and lay the sick puppy on it. Meanwhile, the other 3 puppies drank some more milk and started to totter around. Their little pink tongues hung from their mouths. Their noses and whiskers were covered in milk. They sniffed the grass and the stairs and each other. Every now and then, one or the other would sit down and scratch or make a little whining noise. The children lay down on the grass near the puppies. The puppies sniffed their faces. Yuck, said Skye, wiping milk and puppy saliva from her nose. Dr. Fitzgerald went into the kitchen. She reached up to a top cupboard and pulled down a box full of medicines, syringes, bandages, and other things. She filled a needle with some puppy medicine and went out to the sick puppy. She pulled up a fold of skin and stuck the needle in it. The puppy was too sick to even notice. "Is it going to be all right, Mum?" Leezah asked while a puppy slobbered in her ear. "I don't know," said Mum, looking worried. Chapter 3. Skye's Sacrifice. When Dr. Fitzgerald had attended to the sick puppy, she went into the kitchen and washed her hands. As she cut up fruit for her children's snack, she called to them. "I want you all to wash your hands and come have your snack now, please." No one was hungry, but they obeyed their mum. They took off their coats and shoes in the boot room, washed their hands at the outside toilet, and went into the kitchen. Mummy gave them the cut-up fruit, poured some juice, and handed out muesli bars. While the children ate, they could hear the puppies rustling around and gently whining every now and then. They all wanted to be with the puppies, but, like every afternoon, there was work in the farm to be done after snack. Daddy would come to the house at 4:30 to take the children to feed the cows. After their snack, the children went to change from their school uniforms into their farm clothes. While they were changing, Skye started to think of something generous to do for her brother and sister. Skye really wanted to stay and play with the puppies, and she knew Leezah and Olingah did too. So she said, "If Daddy says it's okay, I don't mind feeding out by myself today. You two can stay with the puppies." Leezah and Olingah's faces lit up. They gave Skye a big hug and rushed out to the kitchen. Leezah grabbed the farm radio. "Baster Mobile 1, over," she said excitedly. This was how she called her daddy by radio. She heard her daddy's voice answer, "Mobile 1 to base, over." Leezah quickly told her dad about the puppies and about Skye's offer to do the feeding out by herself, if Daddy agreed. "Okay," agreed Daddy. "Tell Skye I'll be there to pick her up in 5 minutes. Over and out." Skye came into the kitchen pulling her farm jumper over her head. Her mum gave her a big hug that lifted Skye off her feet. "That was very generous of you, Skye. Why don't you put a sticker on the virtues chart?" Skye chose a clown sticker and put it on the family virtues chart next to the word generous. The chart was a big piece of cardboard with all the virtues written on it. Each time one of them was generous or patient or helpful or obedient or courageous or some other virtue, they could add a sticker to the chart. They were trying to get the Fitzgerald family virtues chart all full of stickers by practicing the virtues. Daddy pulled up in the white ute out the front of the house and honked on the horn. Skye ran out the back, gave the puppies a little stroke, and kept going round to the front. She jumped on the back of the ute and held on tight to the bar. Mr. Fitzgerald drove to the hay barn. She helped him push the hay onto the back of the ute, and then they drove to the paddock where the cows were. As Mr. Fitzgerald drove slowly along, Skye cut the strings and pushed the hay off. Usually the children all did it together, and it was much faster. But Skye did her best, and soon all the hay had been fed out to the cows. They drove back to the shed, swept the hay off the ute, and fed the dogs. Then they locked up the chickens and went back to the farmhouse just as the sun was setting. As the sun set, the air grew very cool. Even though it was the end of spring, it was still cool in Tasmania. Skye slipped her smooth, strong hand into her dad's rough, strong hand. She talked about the puppies they had found. "Do you think we can keep them?" she asked her dad. Mr. Fitzgerald just chuckled and said, "We'll see." When they arrived, the lights were shining from the windows and the smell of baking vegetables was wafting from the kitchen. They walked around the back. The puppies were nowhere to be seen. As they went into the boot room, however, they saw 3 little puppies snuggled up in an old horse rug, fast asleep. Mr. Fitzgerald and Skye quietly took off their boots and went inside. In the kitchen, it was very quiet. Leezah was setting the table and Olingah was pouring 5 cups of juice. Olingah's eyes were red and tears streamed down Leezah's face as she did her work. "What happened?" asked Skye-Maree. Chapter 4: A Funeral. Dr. Fitzgerald pulled the hot tray of vegetables and tofu from the oven and put it on the sink. She dished some onto each plate. As she put the plates on the table and slid the vegetable tray into the sink to soak, she answered Skye, "We have some sad news, Skye. The puppy that was sick has died." "Oh," said Skye quietly. "Where is it?" Dr. Fitzgerald explained that they had wrapped it up and put it in the outside fridge. Tomorrow the children could bury it in the garden. "Are the others okay?" Skye asked. "Yes, they have had some milk and a play and now they are sleeping. Let's all have some dinner now," suggested Dr. Fitzgerald. The family sat up to eat. At first, it was unusually quiet. Then Olingah started to ask some questions. "Mum, does the puppy have a soul?" "No, honey, not like humans have souls." "Does it have a puppy soul?" "Not really. It has a spirit that exists while its body is alive. But when its body dies, the spirit goes too." "So where is the puppy now?" "Well," Dr. Fitzgerald paused. "The body of the puppy is in the outside fridge, but the spirit is gone." "But where did it go, Mum?" Olingah persisted. Leezah helped him to understand. She told him that it was just like when Olingah made a car out of Lego. When you put all the blocks together and add the wheels and the little plastic steering wheel, you have a Lego car. But if you take the blocks apart and the wheels off, you don't have a Lego car anymore. But the car hasn't gone anywhere. It just doesn't exist anymore." Olingah looked a bit confused, but he didn't ask any more questions. After dinner, the washing up was done, showers were had, and prayers were sung. At 7 o'clock, Olingah's bedtime, Dr. Fitzgerald told them a bedtime story. The children loved her stories. Usually they were about 3 children called Leezah, Skye-Maree, and Olingah. The children in her stories had all sorts of adventures, like flying helicopters by themselves, diving under the ocean, finding secret tunnels, and shrinking to the size of a caterpillar. After the story, Olingah went to sleep while Skye and Leezah did their homework. By 8:30, all the children were in bed and close to being asleep. The following morning, they woke up even earlier than usual so that they would have time to bury the puppy before going to school. After prayers and breakfast, they divided up the morning chores. They liked to do them together, but it took longer that way. When all the farm animals were fed, the children met back at the farmhouse. Skye took a shovel and dug a hole at the end of the garden underneath her dad's rose bushes. Leezah carefully took the plastic bag with the puppy in it from the outside fridge. The children carried it to the hole and slowly took the plastic bag off. They placed the puppy in the hole and covered it gently with dirt. Then each of the children gathered daisies, daffodils, and jonquils and put them on top of the place where the puppy had been buried. They didn't know what to do next, so they decided to sing a little prayer that they knew about animals from Abdu'l-Baha. They held hands and sang, "If an animal be sick, let the children try to heal it. If it be hungry, let them feed it. If it be thirsty, let them quench its thirst. If it be weary, let them see that it rests." They all felt a little bit sad. They had tried to heal the sick animal, but they hadn't succeeded. It was time to pack their bags and go wait for the school bus. The puppy's grave looked beautiful with the spring flowers on top. They looked at it for a second more and then turned and went up to the house to get ready for school. Chapter 5: A Treasure Hunt. That afternoon after school, as the children came home on the bus, they talked about the puppies. They all really wanted to keep the puppies, but Leezah had been asking for a puppy all year and her parents had not agreed. "What will Mum and Dad do with them then?" asked Skye. "I don't know. Maybe find homes for them," Leezah said quietly. "Well, let's play with them all weekend at least," said Olingah. They all thought their parents would at least let them keep the puppies for the weekend. The bus pulled up at Fellowship Farm and the Fitzgeralds got off. "Bye, Miss Rowbottom," they called as she closed the doors, turned the bus around and drove back down the long, dusty road to the town. The children hurried to the back of their house to find the puppies. But the puppies were not in the yard and they were not in the boot room. They quickly took off their coats and shoes and washed their hands. Then they went into the kitchen. Usually their dad was making their snack when they got home from school, but the kitchen was empty. On the table was a note. Leezah quickly read the note and then she smiled and said, "Yay! A treasure hunt!" Sometimes on weekends, the Fitzgerald family played a game called Treasure Hunt. One of the adults would write a series of notes and hide them in different places. The children had to follow the clue on each note to find the next note. When they got to the last note, there was usually a little special treat for each of them. It was one of their favorite games. Skye read the note aloud. "In a house that's quite absurd, there's not one person, only birds." The children rushed off to the pigeon house. Their daddy had a big cage full of pigeons that he had trained to fly around the farm and come back. Sure enough, on the door of the pigeon house there was another note. "Go to a gate that's big and blue if you want another clue." The children left the pigeon house and ran off to the front gate of the farm. They had been in such a rush when they came home that they had not noticed a small piece of paper tucked into the wooden rails of the gate. "In this place there's a green toy that's cuddled by a little boy." "My bed!" cried Olingah. "My green rabbit is the toy and I'm the little boy!" The children ran back around the house to the back veranda. Boots went flying in all directions and even Olingah's tight boots got yanked off in seconds. There in the bed was the next clue. "Have a look, if you are able, underneath the kitchen table." "We're right back where we started," laughed Leezah as the children ran to the kitchen and dropped to the floor. A note was stuck under the table. Leezah pulled it off and they sat on the floor to read it. "Change your clothes from school to play. Go to where there's lots of hay." The children rushed to their bedrooms and threw off their school uniforms. Blue pants, white socks, yellow skivvies went flying in all directions. Orderliness was completely forgotten. Even Skye's precious Mary costume with the white dress and blue headscarf that was hanging proudly on a coat hanger on the outside of the cupboard got pushed hastily aside in the rush to find socks and jumpers, skivvies and pants. They pulled on their farm clothes and hurried out of the house to the yard. The hay barn was about 1/2 kilometre from the farmhouse. Usually they drove in the ute with their dad, but no one was tired. They were all excited to find out what might be at the end of the treasure hunt. As they arrived at the barn, they found an arrow made of sticks pointing to the top of the haystack. Chapter 6: A Parcel of Joy. The children often spent many hours in the hay barn making tunnels in the hay. But today, they were focused on something else. They helped each other to climb the slippery hay to the top of the stack. When they got there, they knew they had come to the end of the treasure hunt. There were 3 small parcels there, wrapped in red wrapping paper. "What could it be?" asked Olingah as they each took a parcel and began to pull the paper off. Inside each package was something that made each of the children open their eyes wide. They couldn't believe what they saw. Just then they heard the ute pull up to the hay barn. They grabbed their gifts and scrambled down the hay. Their dad stepped out of the ute smiling. "I guess you must be hungry. No snack today?" "No, we're not hungry. Daddy, do these mean what we think they mean?" asked Leezah with excitement. Each of the children had unwrapped their gift to find a little leather collar and dog leash. "Can we keep the puppies?" Daddy smiled at his children and winked. Then he slowly nodded his head. "Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!" The children all screamed out and jumped up and down, hugging each other. Just then, 3 furry little faces appeared at the window from inside the ute. The puppies wanted to know what all the fuss was about. Each of the children gently pulled a puppy through the window of the ute and snuggled it to themselves. Then the children helped each other put the little leather collars around the necks of the wiggling, sniffling, licking puppies. "Okay, my darlings," said Daddy eventually. "Don't forget we have some hungry cows to feed," said Dad. "Okay, Daddy," they said. Each of them put their puppy back in the cabin of the ute. They put their leashes in too. Then they clambered up the hay to push it down onto the back of the ute. That evening, as the children went to bed, they took some time to settle. They thought of their puppy sleeping in the basket in the boot room, and waves of joy rippled over them. Long after lights out, even Olingah lay awake whispering with his sisters about all the wonderful things they planned to do with their very own puppies. The next morning, the children got up as usual at 6 o'clock. After morning prayers, breakfast and farm chores, they still had some time to play with their puppies. They lay down on the damp grass and let the puppies climb on them, tickling their faces with their little pink tongues. When Mummy came to call them to get ready for school, they asked, "Can we please take them to school, Mum?" Mummy just laughed and went back into the kitchen. The children hurried to get ready for school, then had a few more minutes with their puppies until the school bus came. As they rode to school, they talked about what names they would give to their dogs. Leezah and Olingah's puppies were girls, and Skye's was a boy. "I'm going to call my puppy Flea," announced Olingah in the end. Leezah and Skye thought that it was a funny name for a dog, but they knew Olingah was being serious, and they knew how awful it felt to be laughed at, so they didn't laugh. "Okay, Ollie, but if you call her Flea, maybe she'll get fleas," said Skye. "No, Skye," said Ollie in a patient, grown-up voice. "She can't get fleas from her name, just from other dogs." "True," agreed Skye. Skye thought of different names that she liked. Then she thought of the virtues chart in the kitchen with all its bright stickers on it. "I know," she said. "I'm going to call my puppy Flexibility." "Flexibility?" queried Leezah. "Yep, flexibility." Skye liked the sound of that word. It was a perfect name for her puppy. "Okay, so we've got Flea Fitzgerald and Flexibility Fitzgerald," observed Leezah. Maybe I should choose a name starting with F too. Skye and Olingah had lots of suggestions, but in the end, Leezah decided to call her puppy Firefly, Fizz for short. Chapter 7, To the Doghouse. The last days of spring passed quickly. The children were busy with their school activities, their work on the farm, and most of all, with their new puppies, Flea, Flexibility, Flex, and Firefly, Fizz. The puppies grew bigger and stronger, and some changes had to be made. "Oh no!" cried Leezah one morning when she came to let them out of the boot room and give them their morning milk. Her blue leather school shoes had been chewed up and there was a big poo on Skye's gumboot. "I think it's time these puppies moved out of the boot room," said Mr. Fitzgerald. "We'll have to make the fence around the back garden more secure and make a kennel for them," he added. So when the weekend came, the Fitzgerald family got to work. Leezah, Skye and Mr. Fitzgerald fixed all the holes in the garden fence so that no little puppies could sneak out. Olingah and Dr. Fitzgerald sawed the wood and started to hammer it together to make a doghouse big enough for 3 fully grown dogs. When the doghouse was finished, they all helped to paint it. On the roof of the kennel, the children painted the names of their puppies and big black puppy paw prints. The doghouse looked great. For a full day, they left it to dry. Then, on Sunday afternoon, they let the puppies loose in the yard to explore their new territory and house. The children took the old horse blanket from the puppies' basket in the boot room and put it inside the doghouse so the puppies would feel at home. The puppies explored the big stretch of grass, the flower beds, the fence, and the doghouse. It was all very interesting and they sniffed and panted, wiggled and tumbled around the garden for the whole afternoon. The children followed them, tickling, chasing and tumbling along beside them. When evening came, the children took the puppies to the doghouse and put them inside. The puppies came straight out and followed the children across the lawn. They tried to climb the steps leading up to the veranda and the boot room. "No, Flex," said Skye. "Your bed is over there now." The children carried their puppies back to the doghouse and put them back inside. Then the children sprinted across the lawn and up the steps, but the puppies came running after them. Daddy had a suggestion. "We might need to tie them to the kennel for the first few nights, so they learn that the kennel is their bedroom now." So Mr. Fitzgerald hammered a metal stake to the grass in front of the kennel. The children clipped on the leashes to the dogs' collars and looped them over the stake. The puppies could go in and out of the kennel, but they couldn't go far. The children cuddled their puppies goodnight one more time and left them to get used to their new bedroom. As the children crossed the lawn, the puppies strained at their leashes, trying desperately to follow them. They whimpered and whined as the children climbed the stairs. When Skye, Leezah and Olingah went inside the kitchen and shut the door, Flex, Fizz and Flea began to howl. Leezah thought her heart was going to break. As the children had their evening prayers, got ready for bed and did their homework, the puppies continued to cry out. Daddy and Mummy said they should just leave them for a night or two and then they will get used to their new home. But the children felt very sad for their lonely puppies as they went off to bed. At 10 o'clock, Dr. Fitzgerald woke her husband who was dozing on the couch and they went to bed. In the children's bedroom, there were 2 little girls lying awake on their beds listening to their puppies. "Leezah, are you awake?" whispered Skye. "Yep," said Skye's big sister. "Leezah, I have an idea," said Skye. "What is it?" Skye told Leezah her idea. It was a crazy one, but in the end they decided to do it. By the time the puppy stopped crying and the girls fell asleep, it was very, very late, and they were exhausted. Chapter 8: The Missing Children. Olingah woke up and looked at the clock. It was already 6:10. He wondered why Leezah and Skye hadn't woken him up. They always got up at 6 o'clock. Olingah looked over at Skye's bed. It was empty. He stood up on his bed to look at the top bunk. Leezah's bed was also empty, and the quilt was missing. Olingah put on his dressing gown and slippers and went looking for his sisters. He checked the bathroom. Not there. He checked the guest room. Not there. He checked the sunroom at the front of the house, the living room and the kitchen. No sisters. Olingah's dad was making the bed in Olingah's parents' room, and his mum was lighting the fire, turning on lamps in the living room. But neither of them had seen Leezah or Skye. "What do you mean they're missing?" asked Mummy. "They are," said Olingah. "They're not anywhere." Mummy went into the bedroom and turned on the light. No girls. She and Olingah went out to the back veranda. They checked in the boot room full of coats and boots and bags. They checked the outside toilet next to the boot room with its little stained sink and lots of cobwebs. They checked the laundry at the end of the veranda. But Leezah and Skye were not in any of these places. Mummy started to get worried. She went to tell Daddy that the girls could not be found. They checked the garden around the house, but they couldn't find a trace of them. They started to call the girls' names. "Leezah, Skye, Leezah, Skye." The calling out woke the puppies and they came out of their kennel to see what was going on. "Hey, Flea, Flex and Fizz," said Olingah. "We've lost Leezah and Skye." The puppies strained at the leashes trying to get to Olingah. They had hoped he was going to give them their morning milk. Olingah went back to the kitchen and poured some milk for the puppies. By this time, Dr. and Mr. Fitzgerald were getting really scared. Mr. Fitzgerald went up to the shed where the utes and tractors were kept. The farm dogs tied to the shed greeted him, barking loudly. They were hoping for some breakfast. Dr. Fitzgerald went to check the stables. The horses were out in the fields and the stables were empty. And she called out, "Leezah, Skye, where are you?" Olingah poured the milk into the dish and opened the kitchen door with his foot. But as the door swung open, Olingah lost his balance and the dish tipped over, spilling milk all over the floor. "Oh no," moaned Olingah. He put the dish in the kitchen sink. He rinsed and squeezed the sponge and started to mop up the milk. The milk had splashed all over the floor, the table legs and the cupboards, so Olingah had to keep rinsing and squeezing the sponge. Finally, the kitchen was more or less clean again. Olingah took the milk carton and the bowl and carried them out to the doghouse. He set the bowl on the ground a little away from the kennel and poured the milk. He could hear his mum and dad walking around the area near the house, calling loudly for their missing daughters. Olingah started to feel sick in his tummy from worry. After he had poured the milk, Olingah unclipped the leashes from the collars. The puppies rushed to their breakfast, putting their muddy paws in the dish and covering themselves with milk. But as Olingah bent down to unhook the leashes from the stake, he saw something very strange. Inside the doghouse were 2 big bowls covered in a quilt that had waves and fish sewn onto it. "What is Leezah's quilt doing in the doghouse?" Olingah wondered. "And how did those balls get in there?" Olingah reached in and poked the ball nearest to the kennel opening. The ball started to shuffle around and grunt, and soon a sleepy face appeared from underneath the quilt. "Skye?" exclaimed Olingah. Dr. and Mr. Fitzgerald came in the front gate and went to the side of the house toward the backyard. They were frantic with worry. "You call the police," said Mr. Fitzgerald. "I'll go get the ute and check the hay barn." But they didn't need to do either, because as they rounded the corner of the house, two sleepy girls crawled out from the dog kennel, dragging a quilt behind them. "Morning, Mum. Morning, Dad," they murmured. Chapter 9, Mary Meets Flex. "I found them," called Olingah happily. Dr. and Mr. Fitzgerald stopped in their tracks. Their mouths dropped open. They looked at each other. They wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. They wanted to hug their girls and they wanted to scold them. Meanwhile, the girls bundled up the quilt and hurried towards the house. The grass was cold on their bare feet, and the puppies who had guzzled their milk ran around their ankles, dripping milk and nibbling them as they moved. As they reached the steps, their father took the quilt from Leezah, and their mother pulled the girls to herself in a tight squeeze. "You are wicked, evil, and naughty," she scolded, kissing their hair, their ears, their eyes, and their noses. The day at school seemed to last forever for the two very tired sisters. That night, all three of them went to bed at Olingah's bedtime, 7:30 p.m., and no one paid any attention to the miserable puppies crying and calling through the night from their kennel where they slept all alone. But just as Mummy and Daddy had promised, after 3 nights in the kennel, the puppies were used to it. They didn't even need to be tied up anymore. The days passed, and soon it was the middle of December and the last day of school for the Fitzgerald children. Their school was doing an end-of-year concert. All the children were involved, but Skye was especially proud because she had been chosen to play the role of Mary in the Grade 3 Christmas play. On the last day of school, Skye put on her white gown and blue headscarf. "Why do you have to wear that?" asked Olingah. "Because the Mary in the play always wears a blue scarf," said Skye. "That's how you know." "Know what?" asked Olingah. "Know that it's Mary. She's the one with the blue scarf, like in all the pictures." Skye pinned her scarf to her hair with brand new ladybird clips. Leezah and Olingah also dressed for the school concert. Then the children went out the back door to put on their shoes. As Skye-Maree bent over to put her shoes on, Flex and Flea came bounding up the steps. They wagged their tails and slobbered. They wanted to play. Flea bit down on Skye's blue headscarf. She gurred and tugged. The blue headscarf fell from Skye's head and Flea took off down the steps. "Flea!" cried Skye. But in her long Mary gown, she couldn't run after the puppy. Leezah and Olingah chased Flea around the garden. Flea dodged this way and that. She ran, dragging the scarf through the flower beds, covering it with saliva and dirt. Finally, the children cornered the naughty puppy and rescued the scarf. But it was in filthy tatters. Skye started to cry as Leezah came up to the veranda steps and passed the ripped and dirty headscarf to Skye. "How can I be Mary in this?" she cried. Mummy came out of the kitchen carrying a tray of fruit for the potluck after the concert. "Don't worry, Mary," said Mummy gently. "I have an idea." Mummy took Skye into the house. The others piled into the ute. Soon, Skye and Mummy joined them and they all drove into the school for the concert. The adults went and sat in the school hall. The children went backstage to get ready for their performances. When it was time for the Grade 3 Christmas play, the curtain rose. There in the middle of the stage was a manger with some straw and a doll in it. Next to the manger stood Joseph dressed in brown. On the other side of the manger was Mary, looking lovely in her white gown and beautiful orange headscarf.